Hi everyone, so we are live on the BBC News Facebook page, nowhere else than in London, the fashion capital of the world, as London Fashion Week kicks off, and I'm joined by the gorgeous Leomie Anderson.
Hi everyone.
Former Victoria's Secret model. So she's here to talk to us a little bit about what happens at London Fashion Week and the kind of experiences and challenges she's faced as a dark skinned model. So Leomie, we'll be taking lots of questions as well from you guys, so please get in touch and post your questions and anything you want me to ask Leomie. She's here and I'll put them to you. So Leomie, first of all, what kind of experiences you had as a black model in London Fashion Week and just in catwalks in general?
Well, I would definitely say that London is one of the most diverse cities that I get to work in, with a lot more dark-skinned models and models of colour on the runways. However, I would say places in Europe like Milan and Paris are a lot more behind when it comes to diversity.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think they're so behind in terms of having more makeup and other colours for Asian skin, maybe darker skins? Why do you think that is?
Well, I definitely think it's just kind of a very outdated idea when it comes to that kind of thing in fashion industry. I feel like they're very much still in that kind of feel that, white faces sell more. They don't want to take risks. They don't want to, advance with what's going on with the rest of the world. I feel like everywhere else is progressing, but fashion is still very behind when it comes to diversity.
And don't you think it's more down to your own personal view of what beauty is? So in terms of everyday things like with blogs and it's all about what you think is beautiful, and I think more people should be open and talk about it like you do. What do you do on your blog?
Well, on my blog, I have two blogs. I have crackchanacup.com. I spoke about the lack of diversity backstage at the runways to do with makeup, because I was in a scenario where I sat in a makeup artist's chair and they didn't have any foundation for my skin tone whatsoever. And it kind of outraged me, so I went on Twitter and I was tweeting about it, and it got a big response. And one of the reasons why I feel it got a big response actually is because so many models had experienced it, and I was not the first one to speak about it.
And what would you like to see happen in 5-6 years from now? What would be the ideal thing when you go to a catwalk or a fashion shoot? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I want it to be happening a lot quicker than 5 or so years. I really want to see a mix of ethnicities on the runway. I don't want it to be seen as a big deal when a designer uses more than 4 girls of color. I want it to be seen as a normal thing. I definitely want to see a lot more darker skinned girls and girls of other ethnicities doing makeup campaigns as well, because I know that that's really important. Representation is important. I remember when I was growing up and I was younger and I couldn't find makeup for myself, or I would go into, makeup departments of stores and I wouldn't see a single face that represented me. I want to be able to change that. I want young girls to be able to look around, look in magazines and feel that they are represented.
And just a reminder, it's London Fashion Week starting today, and we're joined by former Victoria's Secret model Leomie Anderson. So you can get in touch on our Facebook page and post your questions to me. And we've got one from Stuart Moore.
Hi,
Leomie. So he asked, Naomi Campbell seems to be doing all right out of it. So what would you say about that?
Well, the fact that you're using Naomi Campbell, who is in her 40s, as, the face of the fashion industry should just go to show that's actually very poor, when you can name, Cara Delevingne, Rosie. There's so many white models who are of this generation that you can talk about. The fact that you're even bringing up Naomi Campbell just shows how, outdated fashion is right now, because she's still seen as the main face of, black models, and she's over 40 years old.
And also, Tyrone asks, is lack of diversity synonymous with racism? Thank you for your question, Tyrone. Keep posting your questions.
I definitely feel that... Do I think it's synonymous with racism? I feel like fashion is kind of imitates life, I think that there's racism in every aspect of the world right now, which is a shame. You have internalized racism within like the police force, you have racism in workplaces. So I definitely feel that fashion kind of reflects that, and they don't really want to step out of that norm. They're still very happy just using mainly white faces for their brand, because they know that it works.
And another kind of diversity is health and weight, and that's another big issue when it comes to fashion and models. And obviously a lot of people suffer from anorexia or eating disorders. Do you think models are to blame for this? Do they all not eat and are really, really skinny, or how would you say the stereotype?
Okay, I get asked this question all the time, and I have to say that I have met some of the most healthiest people in the fashion industry. Models are actually probably the most healthiest eaters that I've seen, honestly. I think that it's kind of unfair to blame models for, you know, people who have eating disorders, because although they might say that, you know, they're seeing all these skinny girls in magazines and in catwalks, it's kind of unfair because we're naturally this way. 90% of models are naturally slim, and there are people like us who aren't models who are also naturally slim, and it's good for them to also see people represent, like, you know, people of their body shape represented. However, I do think, you know, having diversity within department stores and on the high street is really important. I think that everyone should feel included.
And also, a lot of people are talking about other issues in the fashion industry. I don't know what your take is on this. So exploitation on clothes being made like cheap labour. Is that something that you've looked into, or anything that you've got an opinion on that?
I definitely think that when it comes to that kind of topic, I obviously do have an opinion. I don't want to wear clothes that are made by people that are treated unfairly. I don't want to, you know, represent that. However, I think that's something that needs to be resolved on a much bigger scale. It's much bigger than fashion, you know. It's all fair and well to say fashion is to blame for that, but we need to look a lot deeper. We need to talk to the government. We need to talk to the people who are running these factories. We need to talk about labour laws. We need to talk about those kind of issues before you can, like, before it reaches the fashion industry. It's actually a lot bigger. It's definitely something that the fashion industry is trying actively to change.
So Christopher has posted this thought, so I want to get your thoughts on this. He says, ultimately, European designers show to their main customer base, which is other Europeans, and that is why there are so few other ethnic models in their shows. So what do you think to that?
Well, that is wrong, because, you know, some of the biggest suppliers and buyers of high fashion goods are, you know, Asian. You have a really big market in Africa. There's so many buyers. I think it's really unfair to say that, you know, only white people are buying high fashion, because that is not true. It's actually just not true whatsoever.
And what are some of the fashion designers that you've worked for, and who are your favourite designers?
Well, of course, I have to give a big shout out to Jeremy Scott, who's also at the helm of Moschino too, because I've worked very closely with him throughout my career. He's amazing, and he's one of my favourites because he's not afraid to show his personality through fashion. I love him so much. And of course, Vivienne Westwood too.
And Orgel thinks the lack of diversity and racism in fashion is particularly bad in the UK. Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't think so in comparison to the other major cities. You know, New York, London, Milan, Paris are the four major cities, and I would definitely say that it's much worse in Paris and Milan. A lot of black models steer clear of Milan completely because of the experiences that they've had. I spoke about that earlier on the BBC World News piece that I did with Lucy, and, you know, I've had people say to me, oh, sorry, we don't want any blacks this season, we don't want any Africans this season, and that's taken place in Milan only a few years ago or a year ago that I've been through that. I would definitely say that London is breaking barriers. They use street cast models, they use models of a lot of different ethnicities, and New York too, but it's still not good enough in my opinion. It's a long way to go, definitely.
Lots of you are getting in touch, so just a reminder, London Fashion Week kicks off today, and we are here at BBC headquarters in London, the fashion capital of the world, with former Victoria's Secret model Leomie Anderson. So Leomie, Ahmed questions, who is responsible to drive the change? Thank you for your question, Ahmed.
Well, to drive the change, I think it's down to the consumer as well. The consumer needs to put out there that they want to see more diversity. That's number one. I think that casting directors also need to make more of an effort to cast more diverse models in their shows. And then from there, it's, I think, really about the consumer. I think that if a consumer says, hey, we don't feel represented in this brand, and people keep talking about it, it's all about keeping the conversation going and not just speaking about it when it's fashion week too. That's why I'm really trying to speak about it more often as well, because every season we talk about this, every season we talk about the lack of diversity on the runways, and every season is the same thing. So I think keeping the conversations going outside of fashion week too is very, very important.
And something that I want to know as well, how important is that behind the scenes there's diversity? So not just the fashion models, but actually the designers and the people behind the scenes who are doing the clothing. How important is that to have a variety of diversity?
Oh, it's actually of the utmost importance. I think that one of the ways that we're going to, you know, change things in the future is by having people in higher positions of different ethnicities. I think that that's going to be the key to changing things. backstage at shows there might be only a few makeup artists who are of color and who can do black skin obviously to the best because they have black skin themselves, so they practice on themselves. But if I'm backstage at a show and a white girl has sat in her chair, then that means that I might have to go to someone who's less experienced with black skin. And I think that needs to change. I think there should be more makeup artists and hairdressers backstage at shows who know how to work with a variety. And I'm not saying that it has to be necessarily people of color, but they need to have the experience of and work closely with people of color to be able to be professionals in that.
And Ricky has posted a question, and he says, Kanye West, who only wanted multicultural models. What are your thoughts on that, Leomie?
Well, honestly, I might be biased because I'm a big Kanye fan, but no, I walked for Yeezy season 1 and 2, and during the rehearsals, he actually made sure to bring like the dark skin models to the front for Yeezy season 1. I particularly remember that moment because I was like, oh my gosh, Kanye West is bringing me to the front. With that situation, it's kind of like, what did he mean when he said multicultural? Because he tried to then say, oh, I just meant, women of different shades. And penultimately in the show, he had a variety of women. I do think that he used the wrong choice of words by saying just multicultural models, because of course people are assuming that he just meant light skin or mixed race, and you had protesters and a whole uproar about it. And I think that he definitely learned his lesson about how he should phrase things afterwards. So I think it's good that there was a little bit of outrage, but at the same time no one can really know what he meant when he said multicultural.
Okay, and just to let you know that we have almost 3,000 people watching from around the world,
hello,
so thank you.
For
So keep your questions coming. So Smuri, I don't know if I said that right, I hope I did, doesn't think models reflect the normal woman anyway. So that's a whole new topic. So what do you think to that?
Well, what is the normal woman is my question back to you. What is the normal woman? I eat regularly, but I eat like everybody else. I wake up like everybody else. I have the same insecurities that people might have. Just because I'm slim and people might see me as like the perfect figure, I still have my own insecurities with my body. So really, what is the normal woman? They shouldn't, I shouldn't be made to feel ashamed of how I look just because of my job,
And I think that comes back to what we were talking about earlier, about cultural, like in Jamaica and the West Indies and in the Caribbean. If you've got a curvier figure, then that's more embraced and that's looked on as a good thing. And like if you go to European countries, if you're tall and slender, that's embraced. So it's also to do with the countries that you're from, right?
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say when I go back to Jamaica, I'm called Marga. I'm called, oh, you're so skinny. Go eat some chicken. Go eat some this and that. When I go back to Jamaica, that's what I'm getting, So I understand what people are saying, that they feel like models don't represent them, but then what about the people who are like me? Then who else is going to represent them,
And we've got a really nice comment from Naz who says, you're very smart in what you say.
Thank you.
So also, Lisa has posted the question, it's not all about diversity of ethnicity, but how disabled people are marginalised in fashion. So why cannot the industry be more disability inclusive? So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that the fashion industry is still growing, it's still learning, and it's still a very small reflection of society, and they can't necessarily take on every single aspect. I get asked this question a lot, like, do you think that fashion has a responsibility to, cover everybody who's marginalized within society? And I agree. I think that it is time to start seeing people who are in different walks of life on the runways in fashion campaigns, but I do feel like that is changing. You have a lot more designers who are featuring Paralympians and people with disabilities. I think that it's slowly changing, and I think that as time goes on, I definitely feel like more people are going to be represented within fashion, but it does take time.
Yeah, because you've got, I think, Down syndrome models are being used now.
Yeah,
you've got different varieties, burn victims and things like that. So David says hi from Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, hi, Brooklyn. Love you guys.
And also Hatim from Abu Dhabi. He's asking, where are we? Do you want to tell him where we are, Leo?
Well, we are actually on the rooftop of the BBC building, which is off of Oxford Street. So if you just look down there, don't think you can see some of the red buses and whatnot, but that is literally the heart of London right there.
And another question that I've I've got that I'm interested in knowing. A lot of people think about models and they think that they just look good and they don't really talk much, they don't have a brain or things like that. That's a stereotype.
I get those stereotypes all the time.
So how important do you think it is for like what you're doing, you're speaking out, you're having a blog, to use your platform to have a voice for other people to look up to?
Yeah, definitely. It's of the utmost importance, because now more than ever, I think that to be a model, you can't just be a pretty face. You can't just walk the runways and be in pictures. You need to have a voice. I have a lot of young followers who I interact with on a daily basis, and it's really important to me to be a good role model for these people, like for all these girls and these people who are looking up to me. And now more than ever, I think that models are allowed to have a voice. You know, back in the 90s, you had Kate Moss and Naomi Campbell who were hailed for not doing interviews, but now if you don't have an Instagram as a model, it's kind of like, who are you? You know, but I want to use my Instagram, my Twitter, my social media for good. So I think that a lot more models are going to be following suit.
And Hatim says that models should be chosen on merit. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that process. So how you get chosen for different designers.
Oh, wow.
How's that?
Well, funny that you say that, because obviously there's always this debate now. Like, you know, you've had Kendall write her open letter that she should, you know, she's justified in being called a supermodel. You have people who are saying that, you know, these social media girls shouldn't be called models, that they're more like celebrities or whatnot. I do agree that models should be picked more on merit, but that's just in an ideal world. At the end of the day, brands need faces that people recognize. Brands need faces that they feel that they can relate to, and they want to, you know, draw in that particular person's audience. Kendall has millions of followers, so of course they're going to pick her because that means that their brand is being shown to them. So in an ideal world, of course I would say, you know, pick things on merit, but that's just not the way that it works in fashion, I don't think.
So we've got 5 minutes left, guys, so just to remind you, it's London Fashion Week. We're here with Leomie Anderson, so this is a rare interview, so if you've got any questions, please post them on our Facebook page and we'll get them asked for you. So SG, I think that's initials for someone. What's the perfect female body in your opinion? Oh, that's a big question there.
Okay, well, in my opinion, the perfect female body, well, obviously that idea doesn't really exist. There is no such thing as a perfect female body, you know. Like, I think that my body's great. I think my body's perfect because it's mine and I haven't got a choice. I can't change it. I think that everybody should see their own body as like, you know, this is who I am. If I have flaws, then kind of like whatever, you know what I mean? I don't really have an idea of the perfect female body, because I can also look at my mum. She has stretch marks, you know, she's an older woman, little boobs like me, but at the same time her body is perfect. She's given life to someone and that's why she's got stretch marks. So to me, that is the perfect body, you know.
And how do you think people who look at the models, so maybe younger girls or guys who look at these models, should think that this is the way I am, I can't change, so just embrace it? Kind of, do you think it's down to a mental thing as well?
Yeah, definitely. That's why when people ask me, you know, if me being a model affects people who have eating disorders, I think that it's a lot deeper than that. I don't think that someone just looks at somebody who's skinny and says, oh my gosh, now I'm going to have an eating disorder. It's obviously something that they have going on deep inside, and I think that you need to talk to people. If you feel uncomfortable about your body, you need to talk about things, you need to talk to people, you need to, you know, make sure that you're happy within yourself. So whether it means speak to someone, whether it means you want to go to the gym, whether it means that, you know, you want to eat whatever you want to eat, like, you just need to be happy within yourself before anything else, honestly.
Ganu from Nepal asks, how do I get a body like you?
Well, honestly, I've only just started going to the gym sometimes this year with my best friend E. But honestly, I eat what I like. I just like to have a balanced diet, you know. I definitely love making my homemade juices at home with my juice that my mum bought me for Christmas. I enjoy going to the gym and I do boot camp classes sometimes, but honestly, I would love to put my figure down to both my parents. If you're watching this, hi. My dad's 6'4", still got a six-pack, and he's like, I don't know, 45 or whatever. And my mum's like kind of got a similar figure to me, so it's really down to genes when it comes to me.
And Nicola asks, shorter models are around 2. We're not all 6 foot tall, so what would you say to that?
Let us tall people have one thing. And I'm joking. Honestly, I think that when it comes to height, when modelling, it really depends. Some designers do prefer petite girls, and every season you're seeing more and more short girls walk the runways. You know, before 5'9" was considered way too short to be a model. Now you're seeing models like Hailey Baldwin walking the runway, who's my friend, she's 5'9". I think that it's just one of those things, like the more every year they're picking shorter and shorter girls, and sometimes it's just like that girl might have a striking look and they won't matter how tall you are, you know. Like there's male models who are shorter than me who have that striking look and they're doing really well. Sometimes it's not even about height. I don't think height is as big a factor anymore.
And David is actually very unhappy because he thinks this conversation is an attack on white people. So what would you say to that?
No, it's not an attack on white people. I've been asked questions about diversity and I'm black and I'm marginalized and we are a minority. So I'm just speaking and giving a voice to, you know, this marginalized group. You know, you can say that it's an attack on white people, but if you flick through a magazine right now, you're not really going to see that many black faces. So how are you really being attacked when you guys are everywhere?
And Thomas also says, this is a very strong statement, but I don't know what you think. He says that there is racism in every industry.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I, you know, started off saying, that as much as people want to just focus on fashion, there's internalized racism in everything, I think. You know, you have police, workplaces. I don't know, I feel like it's terrible. If you look in America, you see what's going on in America. I think that there's racism everywhere, but it's very, very difficult to just say it's just the fashion industry, you know.
And Fatima asks, how many dark-skinned models are actually in the industry and how many get cast?
There's so many dark-skinned models. When you go to castings, you see so many beautiful girls from every single background, whether they're, you know, dark-skinned and Brazilian, dark-skinned from Africa, dark-skinned from London, light-skinned, brown-skinned, Brazilian, whatever. Like, there's so many black girls, but I feel like we're made to feel like we're in competition with each other because we know that out of 30 girls, maybe only 2 of us might get picked, and alongside maybe 1 Asian girl. There are so many black models going to castings, but unfortunately, we are not represented on the runways.
Well, thank you so much. I think that's coming to an end now, Leomie. Thank you so much for coming at the top of our building. And thank you guys for making this happen and posting all of your questions.
Yeah,
and you can watch this back at the end when it's been published on the BBC News Facebook page, and get in touch with Leomie if you've got any more questions. She's on Twitter as well.
Tweet me, write me on Instagram, everything. I'll be there to answer your questions.
So thank you so much for watching, guys. Bye.
Bye.